In this lesson, we'll take a look at how we can implement command query responsibility segregation in our application with the use of the Nest.js CQRS package. First, we need to install the required library. Once the package is installed, let's navigate to the app module file and import CQRS module.forRoot from the Nest.js CQRS package into our imports array. With this module registered, we can now start implementing the command and query handlers in our application. Let's start with the command handlers. Inside the existing commands directory, we'll create a new file called createalarmcommandhandler.ts next to the existing createalarmcommand.ts file. This file will contain the command handler for this corresponding command. Let's break down this class so everything makes more sense. First, we define the createalarmCommandHandler class and implement the iCommandHandler interface. The class needs to be decorated with the command handler decorator with the corresponding command class passed in as an argument. This decorator tells Nest to register this class as a command handler for the specified command. The iCommandHandler interface requires us to implement the execute method. This method will be called when the command is dispatched. The original command object will be passed in as an argument to this method. Inside the execute method, we can perform any business logic that is required to handle the command. So, following what we've done already in the alarms service, let's create a new alarm model and save it to the database. To achieve this, we'll need two dependencies, alarm repository and alarm factory. With these dependencies injected, we can now update our execute method as follows. Perfect. Now that we have the command handler implemented, let's register it in the alarms module file. Next up, let's inject the command bus into the alarm service and use it to dispatch the create alarm command when the create method is called. We can also remove the alarm factory dependency here as we no longer use it in this class. Note that we could rename this class to use the facade suffix instead of service to better reflect its purpose, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll keep it as is. With this change in place, let's try to create a new alarm with curl and see if it works. As we can see, the alarm was successfully created and we can see the log message in the console. Great! Now that we have the command handler implemented, let's take a look at how we can implement the query handler. First up, we'll need to create a new directory called queries inside of the source/alarms directory. Inside this directory, let's create a new file called getalarms.query.ts that will contain the query class. We're going to keep this query simple in this course, but in a real-world application, we would typically pass in some parameters to this query to filter the results. For example, we could pass in the limit or offset parameters to implement pagination. Similarly, we could pass in the sort parameter to specify the sorting order, etc. Just know that you have these abilities if you need them in your applications. With this in place, let's create a new file called getalarmsQueryHandler that will contain the query handler. A query handler is very similar to the command handler. It needs to be decorated with the query handler decorator and implemented with the iQueryHandler interface. The execute method here will be called when the query is dispatched, and like previously, the original query object will be passed in as an argument to this method. Inside the execute method, we can perform any business logic that is required to handle the query. In our case, we'll start by injecting the alarm repository using the standard constructor injection. With this dependency injected, we can now update our execute method as follows. Great! Now, let's head over to the alarms module TS file and register the query handler in the providers array. Next, let's navigate to the alarm service file and inject the query bus provider here. Using this provider, we can now dispatch the getalarmsQuery query in the findAll method. And believe it or not, that's it. Let's save our changes, head over to the terminal, and let's test everything out. As we can see, the query handler was successfully executed and we could see the alarm list in the response. Great, it worked. So to summarize, in this lesson, we've learned how we can implement command query responsibility segregation, aka CQRS, in our application with the use of the Nest.js CQRS package. We're still just scratching the surface as we don't have any event handlers implemented yet, nor separate read and write models, but we'll learn more about all of that in the upcoming lessons.